For the Dutch in the 1630s, Tulip Mania was running wild, brother, but was it really? We're going back to the Dutch Golden Age, more specifically the 1630s. Well, no, we're going back to the 1550s where the tulip was probably introduced to Europe by Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, though some disagree with this being the introduction, but that's what we're going with. Tulip cultivation in the Islamic world goes back probably to the 10th century, and like many plants introduced in the 15 and 1600s, many believe that they wouldn't grow in the colder European environment. Around 1593, Carolus Clusius began to grow tulips in the Low Countries, or as we call it, the Netherlands. Now keep in mind that at this point, the Dutch were the richest folk in the world, and given that tulips had a vibrant and exotic look to them, plus they were relatively new and rare, they became the new luxury item to be had, kind of like what happened with the pineapple. Now, regular tulips were great, but what everyone really wanted were known as Bizarden, or what we call broken tulips, which are tulips that are infected with a form of mosaic virus, resulting in multiple colors and designs. A quick crash course on tulips here. They grow from bulbs. These bulbs are seeds that form the bulbs over a period of 7 to 12 years. When the bulb blooms into the flower, the original bulb disappears, but a clone bulb forms in its place. And if these new bulbs are properly cultivated for a few years, they become flowering bulbs themselves. And because of the virus, broken tulip bulbs take several years longer. Now, in the Northern Hemisphere, tulips bloom for about a week in April or May, and it's during their dormant phase from June to September that the bulbs can be uprooted and moved.
Everybody got that?
It was also during their dormant phase that the tulips were sold, so essentially people were buying into a futures market. And as they became more popular, especially the broken bulbs, the cost for growers went up, leading them to raise the prices of the finished product. By 1614, with not just local demand rising, but also demand from France, speculators started to really enter the market, which was separate from the actual stock exchange. Typically, the contracts for future tulips were sold or traded in taverns, and the bulbs went for typically a few hundred guilders, though the rarest went for much more, with at least one bringing in 5,000. And many of the speculators simply bought what they could just to turn around and sell it at a higher price, which also inflated the prices. And it's also important to add that when bulb futures were bought from the growers, no money changed hands until the product was delivered. Then came February of 1637 when the market crashed. It wasn't as bad as many say because, as we said, no money had changed hands. So it was buyers that owed growers money. However, since the deals had been made in an unofficial market, yeah, good luck getting your money. Did the Dutch go bankrupt? Hell no. They were still making money hand over fist, and it was really only people that were well off but not necessarily wealthy that had gotten in on the craze, mostly merchants and skilled craftsmen. The growers got what money they could, and tulip prices continued to fall for several decades. No one really ever thought about it, but then the event gained popularity in 1841 with the publication of Charles Mackay's Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds, where he made it out to be much worse than it was, going so far as to say that it greatly affected the Dutch economy, which we're pretty sure that it didn't. Modern historians believe that it wasn't nearly as bad as Mackay made it out to be. So what caused the bubble to burst? Well, we're not sure. Some blame it on an outbreak of plague, but most say that had little to do with the fall. More people say that the craze simply burned itself out, others that the supply finally caught up with the demand, and still others say it was simply a lack of buyers willing to pay the prices that they were expected to pay. Truth be told, it was probably a combination of all of those. And of course, no one really learned anything, and we've had plenty of market bubbles ever since. An interesting one started around 1717 when the French had a run on land and Mississippi became prime real estate. You know, I never thought I'd say that one.